Have you ever wondered why your blood pressure or cholesterol keeps creeping up? Even though you're eating vegetables every day, avoiding junk food, and trying to do the right thing, you're not alone, and the answer might shock you. The truth is, some vegetables that seem healthy on the surface are actually loaded with compounds that stress your heart, trigger inflammation, and quietly erode your cardiovascular health over time. And if you're over 60, your body becomes even more sensitive to these hidden threats. This is Senior Strength, a health channel made for strong, smart adults over 45 who want real solutions backed by science and delivered with care. If that's you, hit subscribe. Let's protect your body together. First food vegetable number 1. Canned tomatoes, especially with salt. Imagine this. Elaine, a 68-year-old retired teacher, thinks she's making a heart-healthy pasta sauce. She uses canned tomatoes, olive oil, and whole grain noodles. A smart move, right? But by the end of the week, she notices swelling in her ankles, fatigue after meals, and her blood pressure reading is 154/92. She's confused and scared. What Elaine didn't realize is that most canned tomatoes are packed with sodium, sometimes over 400 milligrams per half cup. Add that up across meals, and it silently spikes blood pressure. Worse, the acidity in tomatoes reacts with the metal lining in cheap cans, releasing BPA, a chemical linked to heart rhythm issues and arterial stiffness in older adults. As soon as she switched to fresh tomatoes or low-sodium, BPA-free cartons, her swelling decreased, and her pressure dropped by 15 points in 2 weeks. The lesson? Read your labels. Canned doesn't always mean convenient. It could be corroding your heart from the inside. If you find this helpful so far, make sure to hit subscribe, because next week, I'm revealing 3 hidden causes of fatigue in healthy seniors. Don't miss it. Have you ever used canned tomatoes regularly without realizing the sodium load? Or felt bloated or tired after healthy meals? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your experience. Vegetable number 2. Eggplant, the nightshade. Trap. Meet Harold, 72, a proud gardener and devoted husband. Every week, he grills his homegrown eggplant, believing it's one of the healthiest vegetables in his garden. But lately, he's been waking up with chest tightness, joint pain, and a strange fluttering in his heartbeat that he can't explain. His doctor says his heart's under stress, but Harold can't figure out why. Eggplant belongs to the nightshade family, along with tomatoes and peppers. These veggies contain a compound called solanine, a natural toxin that can trigger inflammation. In sensitive individuals, especially those with arthritis or autoimmune issues. But what most people don't know is, solanine can also affect the nervous system, increasing heart palpitations and even disrupting heart rhythm when eaten in high quantities or over time, especially in older adults with thinner arterial linings. Once Harold reduced eggplant and added more anti-inflammatory greens like kale and arugula, his heartbeat stabilized and his energy returned. His cardiologist was stunned, and so was Harold. If your heart sometimes feels off, consider what might be sneaking in through your favorite veggies. Vegetable number 3. Pickles, especially store-bought dill or sweet pickles. Doris, 66, loves her afternoon snack, a sandwich with a crunchy pickle on the side. It reminds her of her childhood, and she always thought pickles were a low-calorie, guilt-free choice. But lately, she's been feeling dizzy when she stands up too quickly. Her doctor tells her it's her blood pressure, again, and this time, it's not improving with her medication. What Doris didn't realize is that pickled vegetables, especially store-bought varieties, are absolutely drenched in sodium and vinegar. Some brands pack up to 800 milligrams of sodium per spear. That's over a third of the daily recommended limit, for just one bite. And the vinegar brine? It spikes acidity in the body, which can lead to electrolyte imbalances and increased strain on your cardiovascular system. For seniors, that means higher heart rates, irregular beats, and pressure spikes that don't respond to medication as easily. When Doris switched to homemade low-sodium pickles made with apple cider vinegar and herbs, she noticed fewer dizzy spells, and her cardiologist finally saw progress. The takeaway? Not all vegetables are heart helpers, especially when they've been soaking in salt and acid for months. Vegetable number 4. Celery. When it's not what you think. Robert, 70, eats celery every single day. It's crunchy, low-calorie, and it makes him feel healthy, especially when he dips it in a little peanut butter as a snack. But oddly enough, his heart doesn't feel better. His doctor recently mentioned elevated blood pressure and asked him to track his meals. Robert was shocked when the culprit wasn't chips or meats. It was the very celery he trusted. Here's the hidden truth. Conventional celery, the kind that's not organic, is one of the most pesticide-contaminated vegetables in the world. Every stalk is often sprayed with chemical residues, some of which are neurotoxic and hormone disruptive. Over time, these toxins can impair blood vessel function, inflame arterial walls, and affect the rhythm-regulating pathways of your heart. And the worst part? Seniors absorb these chemicals more easily due to slower detox systems and reduced kidney function. Once Robert switched to organic celery or swapped it for cucumbers and jicama, his pressure lowered, and he felt more energetic and mentally sharp. The message is clear. It's not just what you eat, but how it's grown that affects your heart. Don't assume green always means safe. Vegetable number 5. Kale, when your thyroid can't handle it. Marianne, 63, was proud of her morning routine. A kale smoothie with flax, almond milk, and a banana. She thought she was fueling her body like a champion. But over time, she started gaining weight, feeling cold all the time, and worst of all, her heart rate became irregular. She couldn't understand it. After all, kale is a superfood, right? Kale is healthy, but only if your body can process it. For seniors, especially women, kale can interfere with thyroid function due to compounds called goitrogens, which block the body's ability to absorb iodine. And when your thyroid slows down, your metabolism drops, your cholesterol rises, and your heart can start to beat slower or in an irregular rhythm. In older adults, this creates a dangerous mix: fatigue, weight gain, and increased cardiovascular risk, even when you're doing everything right. When Marianne reduced raw kale to just twice a week and lightly cooked it to break down the goitrogens, her symptoms eased. Her weight stabilized, and her doctor noted a steady heart rhythm at her next visit. Lesson: even a superfood can become a super risk if your thyroid is vulnerable. Seniors must be careful with what health looks like on the surface. Vegetable number 6. Bamboo shoots, the silent sodium sponge. Frank, 74, loves Asian cuisine. A few times a week, he enjoys stir-fry with chicken, veggies, and what he thinks is a harmless addition: bamboo shoots. But lately, Frank's heart has been pounding more often at night. He's had trouble sleeping, and he's noticed swelling in his legs. His cardiologist said it might be time for stronger blood pressure meds, but Frank wasn't ready for that. Here's what Frank didn't know. Canned bamboo shoots, the kind most people buy, are incredibly high in sodium, sometimes over 500 milligrams per half cup, depending on the brand. And even the low-sodium options are still high by senior standards. But there's more. Bamboo shoots also contain cyanogenic glycosides, which can release cyanide compounds if not cooked properly, adding stress to your already aging liver and kidneys and affecting blood pressure regulation. Frank switched to fresh or thoroughly rinsed and boiled bamboo shoots and limited them to once a week. The result? Less swelling, steadier blood pressure, and no need to increase medication. The key takeaway: hidden ingredients, even ones labeled healthy, can quietly overload your system and wear down your heart over time. Vegetable number 7. Raw spinach, when it overloads your blood. Linda, 69, switched from iceberg lettuce to spinach in her salads, thinking she was leveling up her nutrition. She even blended raw spinach into her smoothies daily. But soon after, she began experiencing lightheadedness, random bruising, and unusually slow healing after a minor kitchen cut. Her doctor ran tests and told her something unexpected: her blood was too thin. Raw spinach is packed with vitamin K, which usually helps with clotting. But when consumed in excess, especially raw, it can conflict with blood-thinning medications like warfarin or even cause irregularities in seniors not on medication. What's more, spinach is high in oxalates, which bind to calcium and may contribute to kidney stones and impaired mineral absorption. And when your blood gets too thin or your kidneys are overworked, your heart has to compensate, putting it at long-term risk. When Linda reduced raw spinach to a few times per week and lightly sautéed it instead, her blood normalized and her bruising disappeared. Seniors need to remember, raw doesn't always mean better. In large amounts, even spinach can shift the delicate balance your heart relies on. Vegetable number 8. Corn, especially sweet corn and corn-based products. James, 67, always enjoyed corn with dinner, a side of boiled corn on the cob, or a spoonful of corn in his salad. Sometimes, he'd snack on popcorn or have a corn tortilla with soup. He wasn't diabetic, but his doctor noticed his blood sugar was creeping higher, and so was his triglyceride level. He couldn't understand how that was possible. He rarely touched dessert. Corn is technically a vegetable, but it behaves more like a starch in the body, especially sweet corn. It ranks high on the glycemic index, meaning it quickly spikes blood sugar. For seniors, this is dangerous because it can lead to insulin resistance, weight gain around the midsection, and elevated triglycerides, all of which increase the risk of heart attack. And worse, most corn today is genetically modified and sprayed with pesticides that have been linked to inflammation and cardiovascular dysfunction in aging populations. When James reduced corn to once a week and swapped it with high-fiber veggies, like zucchini and asparagus, his blood markers improved, and his energy came roaring back. Bottom line, corn can be a treat, but when it becomes a habit, it's silently shifting your body toward metabolic stress and heart strain. Vegetable number 9. Potatoes, especially white potatoes and soups containing them. Margaret, 71, loved her weekly bowl of potato soup. It reminded her of her mother's cooking. She also baked potatoes for dinner often, thinking they were better than pasta or bread. But over the last year, her doctor started warning her about prediabetes, and she noticed her ankles were puffier, her blood pressure was harder to control, and walking upstairs left her short of breath. She was doing everything right, or so she thought. Here's what Margaret didn't know. White potatoes are high in simple carbohydrates, and they break down into glucose almost instantly in the body, causing rapid blood sugar spikes that trigger the release of insulin. Over time, these constant sugar surges create insulin resistance, a major driver of belly fat, high triglycerides, and arterial plaque buildup. But there's another layer. When potatoes are boiled into soups or mashed with butter and cream, the glycemic load increases even more, putting enormous stress on your heart and metabolic system. For seniors, this is especially risky because insulin resistance doesn't just raise blood sugar. It hardens arteries, inflames blood vessels, and raises blood pressure silently over months or even years. Add to that the potassium-sodium imbalance many seniors already face, and you've got the perfect storm. Potassium-rich potatoes combined with added salt in soups can confuse the heart's electrical rhythm, leading to irregular beats, palpitations, and even increased stroke risk if not caught early. When Margaret cut back on white potatoes and replaced them with fiber-rich, slow-digesting options like lentils, carrots, and sweet potatoes in her soups, her blood pressure stabilized, her sugar levels improved, and her shortness of breath eased. She felt clearer, lighter, and stronger. The lesson? Even humble, familiar foods like potatoes can act like sugar bombs to the aging heart. It's not about cutting comfort. It's about upgrading it. With love for your future self, let's quickly recap the 9 vegetables we talked about today, so you know exactly what to avoid and what to swap out for a stronger, safer heart. Tomatoes. Too acidic and inflammatory for sensitive hearts. Eggplant. Contains solanine, which can trigger arrhythmia and inflammation. Pickles. Soaked in sodium and vinegar. Hard on blood pressure and arteries. Celery. One of the most pesticide-laden veggies, especially dangerous if non-organic. Kale. Goitrogens can disrupt thyroid, leading to heart rhythm issues. Bamboo shoots. High sodium and cyanide risk if not cooked right. Raw spinach. Too much vitamin K. Affects clotting and kidney function. Corn. Spikes blood sugar fast. Acts more like sugar than a veggie. White potatoes. Starch overload that triggers blood sugar and blood pressure spikes. These vegetables aren't always bad, but when eaten too often or in the wrong form, they quietly put pressure on your heart, blood vessels, and metabolism, especially after 60, when your body isn't as forgiving. Instead, choose steamed greens, root veggies like carrots, zucchini, cooked spinach, and low-sodium options that support heart rhythm, reduce inflammation, and help you feel lighter, not heavier, after a meal. If any of today's points helped you understand your body better, tell me in the comments. Which vegetable surprised you the most and why? And don't forget, subscribe to Senior Strength, because next week, we're revealing the 5 foods that reverse artery damage, and you don't want to miss that. Your strength is your future. Let's protect it together.